and then attach a pin tuck foot. Thread your double needle with 2 different threads, and then you need to raise your tension on your machine, like double the tension. The higher tension will cause the fabric to gather, and that's what creates those pin tucks. I went down to about 1 inch or 2 below the armholes, and you want to add about 10, maybe 12 pin tucks total. You're going to use the pin tuck foot as your guide as to where to start the next pin tuck. As long as your needle is in the center position, they'll be a very evenly spaced across the whole dress. Make sure you back stitch at the front and end of your pin tucks so that they don't come undone. As I went along the dress, I gradually made each pin tuck just slightly shorter. Going to do the seam or the hem on the neckline now. Take your scissors and just notch like 1/4 to 1/2 inch notches the whole way across. And then on the wrong side of the fabric, fold the fabric back about 1/2 inch, and those notches will allow it to open and fold back along that curve. And while you hold those back, just sew that 1/2 inch seam back the whole way across the top of the neckline, being careful that you don't pull those pin tucks open. When you go across the pin tucks, try to keep them gathered. Next, we'll do the same thing on the back of the dress, and I just cut both of them at the same time to save a little time. Again, 1/4 to 1/2 inch notches the whole way back. On the wrong side of the fabric, fold them back 1/2 inch, and sew the neckline down. Trim your threads and iron the neckline really well. Do the exact same thing on the other side, making sure you fold them back on the wrong side of the fabric so that there's 2 mirror image pieces of each other, so that you have each side of the back. Now we're going to sew the front to the back of the dress at the shoulders. It helps me to see it visually and lay it out to make sure that I don't sew something on the wrong side. So I like to lay it out with the right sides together. Make sure you align the shoulders with the finished necklines together. So those finished edges, place those together, and you can stick a pin on each side to make sure they hold there. And then sew a 1/2 inch seam straight across the top. We're going to attach the sleeves now. So with the right sides together, we're just going to start at one corner and sew around. And I broke my thread. Sew the rest of the way across the armhole and trim your threads at each end. And now my fabric has this nice end on it, so I don't need to hem that sleeve, but if yours doesn't, you'll need to hem that. So just fold it back about 1/2 inch and hem it. And then line up the edges of the sleeve and just sew all the way down the sleeve where it connects to the dress, and then you can sew all the way down the edge of the dress as well. Here on the other side, do the same thing at the side end of the sleeves, line them up, go down to where it attaches to the dress, line up the edges of the dress, and then sew the rest of the way down the dress as well. Before we actually sew any buttons on, right sides together, so turn it back inside out. We need to sew down the side of this dress, the back. So I usually go about 2/3 of the way up. Make sure you're underneath the armpit a little ways so they can get their arms and shoulders in. So somewhere around the waist, I'll start sewing. Again, about halfway, 2/3 of the way up, something like that. There we go. And actually, I need to do a 1/2 inch stitch. I'm going to line up the bottom and just pull it tight. And then we need to iron this seam. We need to iron this seam open and then continue ironing it open all the way to the top of the dress so that we have a backing to sew those buttons to. Once you have that ironed, turn it right side out. So now those seams are ironed back. We're going to go ahead and attach the buttons. So this is a buttonhole maker. I know they're kind of scary, but they're pretty easy to use. Stick your button in there so that we know the right size of the button. And then you can see, let me change the focus. Okay, you see these 2 notches? Those are what move when we put the button in. On your machine, you have a buttonhole dial here. That needs to come down and sit between those 2 notches. So take your regular foot off. The buttonhole maker goes in. And again, that dial comes down in between those 2 notches. There we go. Okay, and then switch your stitch number to any of your buttonhole makers. Most machines come with these now. If yours doesn't, you can just use a zigzag stitch, but you'll have to manually draw on the size you need for a buttonhole to stitch along, something like that. And the buttonholes start at the bottom and go up. Make sure you're not too close to the top of the fabric or it will get stuck. So all you have to do is push down on the foot and it's going to create that for you. lift your presser foot, trim your threads, and then you want to take a needle and push it through your new buttonhole. Sorry, I got a dull needle. There we go. Let me just close up on that. And then take a seam ripper, push it into the bottom of that buttonhole. This isn't very focused, is it? There we go. Okay, and just push up. Maybe. There we go. And that needle's gonna stop you from ripping through the top of that. If you don't have that needle there, you are going to be very upset because you're gonna rip right through the top of the dress. Right, there we go. Just make sure it's nice and open. And you have this lovely little buttonhole. I'm gonna do those the rest of the way down. I think I'm gonna put 4 or 5 in. Let's go ahead and attach the actual buttons now. We're gonna use a buttonhole foot. This opening part goes at the front. Let's see, I need my buttons. Alright. So I'm going to put my button in here. I'm going to line it up. There's a center dash that needs to go between those 2 buttonholes. My machine does not have a buttonhole number. Some of them do, so just use that if you have one. Otherwise, go to your zigzag stitch. Put your length to 0. And your width, you just need to manually move it until it fits in both of the buttonholes without hitting the sides or anything. And after you've done a couple turns and it doesn't hit anything, just put your foot down. And that button is attached. Or you can obviously hand sew it if you'd like. I just saves a lot of time to do it this way, so that's the method I prefer. Plus I think it's kind of fun. Just make sure you line up your buttons with the buttonholes on the dress. You can like lay it out and mark it with a pen if you want. Or you can just kind of eye it like I'm doing now. And that's it. Trim all your threads. And it is good to go. All done. Yay. Just iron everything out good. Make sure you don't have any threads left. Otherwise, there we go. That's it. And your dress is done. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped you get through your pattern. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below or message me from wherever you got the pattern. Thanks!